so it's no surprise to anyone that I love legacy characters. I mean, I literally made 2 videos about them. But today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. You see, I planned on making a 3rd video naming even more legacy characters that I didn't talk about in my original 2 videos, such as Donna Troy, Renee Montoya as the Question, Scott Lang as Ant-Man, and so on. But I noticed online that there are some people who just really don't like when characters take up the role of another hero. Some examples being when X-23 became Wolverine or when Electro recently became Daredevil. Okay, seriously, you do this right after I release my Marvel Legacy Characters video. And while I get that some people don't like when characters change, lots of people tend to just, that is X-23, not Wolverine. And to that I respond, have you not heard of a legacy before? On my Twitter, which you should go follow, I haven't held back the fact that I love legacy characters because I really do love them, as some of my favorite characters are legacy characters, examples being Wally West, Miles Morales, and Kamala Khan. A character taking up the mantle of another can make for some really interesting storytelling, as well as do things such as preserve a legacy of a character so that they won't be forgotten. Most of my videos have been fairly character oriented, but today I want to do something a little bit different. I'm going to be going over why I think legacy characters matter and why I think they're really awesome. This is of course my opinion, as some people might not like legacy characters, but I thought it'd be just a fun idea where I can talk about my love for these type of characters, because while I love making character oriented videos, a big thing I want to do for my channel is to just be able to discuss some awesome things in comics and have fun doing so. First off, let me give a rundown of what a legacy is and what legacy characters are. So in basic terms, a legacy character is the mantle of a character that is passed down to another. The mantle can be passed down because it's a family legacy, a character can retire, or they can do what characters usually do: die. Let's use Barry Allen and Wally West as examples. Yes, I know Jay Garrick was the first Flash. We all know Barry Allen as the Flash, but we also know Wally West as the Flash too. How is that so? Well, I'll tell you. During the event Crisis on Infinite Earths, Barry Allen died and Wally, who is his sidekick Kid Flash, picked up the mantle of the Flash, therefore continuing the Flash legacy and establishing himself as a legacy character. Wally West is probably the greatest example of a character picking up their mentor's mantle, but there are plenty of other awesome examples, such as when Miles Morales became Spider-Man after Ultimate Peter Parker's death, X-23 becoming Wolverine after the death of Logan, Kyle Rayner becoming the Green Lantern after Hal Jordan went crazy. Yeah, look, I know the circumstances aren't always the best, but you guys get the point. These are just a few examples of legacy characters, but there are a ton more, so if you want to know some more, go check out my 2 videos about them. Now that you guys know what legacy characters are, let me go over why I think they're important and why I love them. A big reason why I love legacy characters is the new stories that can be made with them. Look, I don't get how that's a basic answer. Okay, but seriously, stories that can be made when a character picks up a mantle of a well-established hero can work really well and be overall awesome. It's especially awesome when a character adds their own twist to a mantle to really make it their own. A great example would be when Dick Grayson, who is known as the first Robin and Nightwing, took over the mantle of Batman after Bruce Wayne quote-unquote died. In the series Batman and Robin, we see that Dick has already established himself as a different version of the Dark Knight. A big difference we see is that the dynamic between Batman and Robin has completely swapped. Usually Batman is the darker one and Robin is the more lighthearted one to complement Bruce's darkness and even it out. But here we see that Dick Grayson is the more lighthearted one and that Robin, who is Bruce's son Damian Wayne, is the darker one. I don't know why I like that so much, but it's just a little twist like that that really makes Dick Grayson's Batman stand off as his own. Another thing I love to see about legacy characters is how they work under the pressure of having this new position and seeing how it impacts their relationships with families, allies, and even enemies. A great example of this is when Miles Morales became Spider-Man. He not only had to live up to the role of Spider-Man, but also had many relationships impacted by being Spider-Man. His uncle Aaron Davis, aka the Prowler, used Miles and blackmailed him. His mom Rio Morales was killed during the Venom War, which caused him to give up being Spider-Man for some time, and his dad abandoned Miles after discovering that he was Spider-Man because he blamed him for the deaths of Aaron and Rio, but they did eventually reconcile. He also faced a bunch of pressure from both S.H.I.E.L.D. and the general public, as living up to the Spider-Man mantle is no easy task. But of course, Miles was able to prove himself to be worthy to take on the mantle of Spider-Man and is one of the coolest legacy characters of all time. Another big reason why I love legacy characters is the representation of different cultures. To me, representation is a big deal in comics, and there are lots of awesome legacy characters that stem from many different cultures, such as Kamala Khan, Miles Morales, and Jaime Reyes, just to name a few. Representation is awesome because people of different cultures can read about these characters taking up a mantle, and they can see themselves in those said characters. Now look, a lot of people will usually just say, ugh, why can't Marvel and DC just make new characters instead of replacing already established ones. SJW agenda. And look, I get people don't always like change, but let's be honest. If Marvel and DC made a bunch of new characters, they would most likely be overshadowed by already existing popular characters. By letting legacy characters of different cultures take over the mantle of established heroes, not only do we once again get new types of stories to come from these characters, but then these different cultures are able to be represented front and center, and I think that's awesome. The last point I want to bring up about why legacy characters are great is that while we're getting new versions of popular characters, legacy characters are actually preserving the legacy of the previous holder. Oh wait, did I just define the point of legacy characters? How interesting. Let's go back to Barry Allen and Wally West. Let's say when Barry Allen died, Wally West was like, I'm not going to be Kid Flash anymore, but I'm also not going to be the Flash. I'm going to make my own legacy. He would then become a character not associated with the Flash mantle, and there would be a good chance that Barry Allen would just be lost in comic book history, and the Flash wouldn't be as popular. But since Wally West actually took up the mantle of the Flash legacy was preserved, and Barry Allen was remembered due to Wally West continuing his legacy. Once again, that is literally why they're called legacy characters. They're taking up a mantle and continuing its legacy. I know this should really be common knowledge, but I feel like some people just worry that their favorite characters will be forgotten, and that's just not true. For example, when I was younger, I had no idea who Ted Kord was, but when I watched Young Justice and saw Jaime Reyes took over the mantle of the Blue Beetle, I learned about Ted Kord, therefore cementing his legacy within Jaime Reyes. Legacy characters aren't here to replace and forget established characters, but are just here to take up their mantle and continue their legacy. And that's just some of the reasons why legacy characters are important and why I love them. I'm not really used to doing these type of videos where I just sit here and talk about why I love certain things, but I want to have variety in my content, so hopefully I was able to get my point across. Whether you like or dislike legacy characters, let me know down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and if you want to support the channel, go ahead and subscribe. As always, stay awesome, support your local comic book shops, and have a wonderful day.